Hi, welcome to Terry's Studio. Today we're going to make a pleated or an accordion style face mask. As you can see, the one I have here has a wire at the top. I've inserted enough elastic to go around the head, and I have a little pleat at the bottom. So it doesn't lay real flat because of this pleat, but I think it really helps secure and close in your entire face. So let's get started. You will need a 10-inch wide by 13.5-inch rectangle of fabric. If you take your fabric and cut a 10-inch strip salvage to salvage, you can get 3 13.5-inch rectangles out of it. You'll also need a 2-inch wide strip of fabric. It could be the same fabric, any fabric, and this is going to be the casing that's on the outside of your mask. So it's time for us to go to the sewing machine and get sewing. Okay, if you want to add an extra layer of protection, you can always add a fine layer of interfacing. This is Pelon interfacing. It's lightweight, it's fusible, and you can iron it to the wrong side of your mask if you want that extra layer. Just be cautious because it's a little bit more difficult to breathe out of if you put the Pelon layer in there. Okay, now we're ready to sew our mask together. So you're going to put right sides together, and this edge right here will be the bottom of your mask. So if you are making a mask where someone could put a filter inside the mask, what you'll want to do is sew for a few inches on this side and a few inches on this side so somebody can insert a filter. I'm not going to make a mask right now like that, so I'm just going to make a stitch all the way across one side. Super, super easy. I take a 1/4-inch seam, and I always back stitch just to hold that stitch in there. Just a good little 1/4-inch seam. I don't use a lot of pins because I've been doing this quite a while. I hold my fabric down. And my cutter broke this week. Been using it a lot. Now I have a seam all the way across, and of course if you want to leave room to insert a pocket, you wouldn't have sewn all the way. You'd have sewn out to right there and then sewn this other end. Now it's time to go to the ironing board and iron it right side out. I just need to take my tube that I created, and I want to turn it wrong side out, and I want to iron it. And I want to make sure that my seam that I just stitched is on one side. And then I have a good fold on the other side. Okay, so I like to top stitch. You certainly don't have to do that, but I like a top stitch on the top and the bottom. You certainly don't have to do this, but it makes it a nice crisp edge. Just make a stitch on each side. Go down the bottom side. Now, if you left an opening, you're just going to stitch to where that opening was. That's why you hold your thread. So I have my top stitching, and it's time to insert the wire. You'll insert the wire on the edge that was folded, not the edge where your seam was. So I'm going to take a wire. I have a wire right here. It's 14 gauge solid wire. It's very easy, flexible wire that somebody can form right over their nose, and it lasts. It does not rust because it's copper inside there. And so I want to put this on the fold side, because if I put it on the bottom and left an opening there, you're going to be stitching this down. You won't be able to get your filter in. So I'm just going to slip it in there, and I'm going to get it in the middle the best I can. I do not measure it. Some of you may want to measure it, but now I'm going to stitch all the way around that wire to hold it inside that area. Be careful I broke a couple of needles. They were just sitting here. I picked them up before I started filming this. So I'm gonna turn it. I'm gonna get that wire out of the way. And I can feel the end of that wire right there. And I backstitch over the ends just to secure it. Here we go. Now we're ready for the pleating. Okay, I'm going to use this as my outside, my right side, the outside of the mask. And you want your pleats to go down. You don't want your pleats to go up because it'll catch stuff in there. So you want to pleat downwards. And what you'll do is, this is about 1 inch right here. It's about thickness of your finger. And you're just gonna start sewing right there. Once I get that started, I can come and pull up my other 2 pleats because it's gonna hold that down. And you want this to be about 3 to 3.5 inches. This is where you don't want your bobbin to run out while you're trying to hold those stitches down. Okay, and then I'm gonna go do the same thing to the other side. And again, I wanna keep my pleats in the downward direction. I'm just gonna pick it up, get the first one started. Now, nobody's gonna measure to see if you have these right. These pleats are really just to make the sides of the mask smaller, and then it'll expand over the nose and mouth area. So here we go. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm gonna measure these sides and let's see how well I did. Okay, this is about 3 1/4 and that is about 3. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but here we go. That is the right, this is the right side of my mask. Okay, it's time to add the casing. So you want to cut your 2 inch wide strip a little bit wider than the sides of your mask. I've already cut that side, so I'm just going to put this one over this side, and I'm just going to give it about 1/4 inch. You can give it about 1/2 inch. That'll be fine. Nobody's going to measure that. And now it's time to sew them to your mask. So this is the right side. I'm going to sew my casing to the back side, so when I bring it around to the front side and I stitch it, it just looks prettier. So I'm going to take this piece, I'm going to turn down the end so we have a finished edge on our mask, and I'm again using 1/4 inch seams. I'm going to stitch the casing. This is the right side of my casing, and I'm just going to fold it up on the bottom. Stitch it and back stitch. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Turn it around to the other side. I'm going to put the right side to the mask. You really can't tell on this little mini gingham. I'm going to fold under. Okay, now it's time to iron the little sides of our casing down on each side. Just get a good little crease right there. And then you're going to flip it. Remember, this was the wrong side. We're going to flip it over to the right side. And all we need to do now is turn under each side. Turn under each side. This, and then cover the stitch that you made on the front. And now you have your elastic casing. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Okay, we're back at the sewing machine, and I just need to make a stitch all the way down the edge of this fold to make my casing. going to do the same thing to the other side. Okay, so I have my mask, and if you left an opening at the bottom for a filter, you can't do this one last step because you'll need to leave this side open so you can slip a filter up, but this is not going to have a filter pocket. So I want to put a dart here so it will allow the mask to wrap around the chin and hold it close to your face. So since this is the right side, I'm going to slightly open it, and I'm going to put right sides together right here and fold it over. And now what you want is to have a right angle. We're going to come up 3/4 to an inch up this way, and we're going to sew it to about 3/4 to an inch on this side. So I'm just going to make a seam right there. And you might want to adjust this seam for whoever you're making it for. If it's for somebody with a larger face, you won't make this size. You might make a smaller right triangle. If you've got somebody that's got a smaller face, you might have to take up more. But you can't do this if you're going to leave a pocket. So now the right side, I have an area where it'll fit very nicely underneath your chin, and you'll have a good closure over your face. Okay, now we're ready to insert the elastic. What I like to do is add enough elastic that can go behind the head and instead of behind the ears, because if I gift this mask and they want it behind the ears, they can always trim it to fit it behind their ears. Otherwise, they have enough to go around their entire head. Let's talk about elastic. I have two kinds of elastic here. This is 1/16 inch paracord. It is a little bit stiff, so I usually cut this 32 to 33 inches long at 27 inches. Now paracord is really easy to feed through the casing that you made, and you can burn the ends so it stops fraying. So you can go one side, out the other, in one side, out the other, and look how quickly that is. Now paracord, my husband taught me how to make a square knot, so it's right over left and pull it around, and then it's left over right and pull it around, and I'm going to grab all 4 of these and make it tight. Now somebody getting this mask, they can adjust this to where it's longer or it's shorter. If you want to undo the knot, you just push it together and it's undone. So let's look about ways that you can feed this 1/8 inch wide. Of course, I can't come in here and shove it in here and expect it to come out. It's not stiff. So you can run a safety pin through it and run it through the edge, or you can have a little gadget like this is here. I really don't know what this is called, but I slip this in, and through that hole right there, I pull this through on this side, and you can do the same thing with a safety pin. Sometimes it doesn't go right through. Now I'm going to pull it through on this side. Now I have my elastic, and on this you're just going to tie just a plain old everyday overhand knot. Thank you, David. Overhand knot right here. I don't pull it really tight because somebody getting the mask, they may want it bigger or they may want it smaller. You want them to be able to get that knot out. So now we have a mask that it can be fitted over your face.